The polished marble floor gleamed under the lobby lights, but what was about to unfold would stain the name of Horizon Grand far more than any scuff on the tile. She walked in alone. No entourage, no designer brands. Just a plain black t-shirt, dark jeans, and sneakers that barely made a sound. Yet her presence shook the air like thunder. She didn't need a crown. The calm in her eyes told you she'd worn many, and discarded each one without regret. The front desk was staffed by Gregory Vance, the manager, a man with a permanent sneer carved into his face like it was policy. Beside him stood Lauren Hayes and Kevin Patel, their arms folded like gatekeepers of some elite world. When the woman reached the counter, Gregory barely glanced at her before issuing a sentence without trial. "You lost, ma'am. This place isn't for your kind." He didn't whisper. He didn't check her ID. He just announced it to the entire lobby like a town crier delivering gossip. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman they were about to mistreat wasn't just another guest. She was the storm. She leaned forward, quiet and composed. "I have a reservation. Penthouse, name's Carter." Gregory raised an eyebrow as if she'd claimed to own the moon. "That's a premium suite," he said. "You sure you booked the right place?" No anger in her face, no twitch of annoyance. She slid over her ID and a sleek black credit card. Gregory took the card with 2 fingers like it carried disease. Lauren smirked. Kevin rolled his eyes. A silent button click. Lauren's voice over the intercom. Security to the front desk. Possible fraudulent reservation. Might be a scam. Still, the woman didn't flinch. She'd seen this before, many times. That's when a voice whispered nearby, "I'm filming this." A young woman named Sophie, a travel blogger, already had her phone up. Her friend Jacob started live streaming. The guests were starting to notice. And still, no one at the front desk had any clue who they were messing with. The tension wasn't just racial, it was systemic, rehearsed, almost, practiced. Kevin mocked her. Lauren pressed in closer. Gregory locked her card in the company safe with a grin. "You're done here," he smirked. No one asked her a single valid question. No one even checked the system. They just saw what she wore, heard the calmness in her voice, and decided, she doesn't belong. What they didn't know was this, that black card. The one Gregory had just locked away. It had her name etched onto it not as a guest, but as an owner. 9 minutes. That's all it would take for everything they believed about themselves, their power, and this hotel to crumble. And she would do it without raising her voice. She stood alone, surrounded by polished stone and polished egos, but her calm, her poise, was beginning to pull the attention of the entire lobby. The card was locked in a brushed steel safe. Her ID dismissed, her presence denied. Gregory, arms folded, leaned toward her with smug finality. "We've seen this scam before," he said loudly for the room to hear. "Flashy card, fake name, no booking, you can leave now." But the woman didn't blink. Instead, she reached into her pocket and tapped her phone just once. Across town, in a glass-walled office tower, Nia Thompson, her executive assistant, picked up immediately. No greeting, just 3 words. "It's happening now." On the other end, Nia didn't ask questions. "Systems ready," she said. "All commands green." Back at the hotel, Gregory was still gloating, spinning the black card between his fingers like a trophy. "This card," he said to Kevin, "lock it up. We'll call the bank and let them explain how fake this is." Kevin strutted toward the safe like he was on stage, exaggerated every movement, slammed the door, turned the key, and grinned. "Company property," he declared. "She's not getting it back." But the hotel wasn't just hosting guests, it was becoming an audience. Phones were up, guests were recording, live streams were rolling. And the narrative they were capturing wasn't going the way Gregory thought. "You're going to regret this," Aisha said softly. Gregory snorted. Lauren smirked. Kevin scoffed. None of them asked who she was. None of them wondered what kind of woman stands calmly while her dignity is stomped on. But Alina Ruiz did. The young concierge had been watching the whole time from her station. Her instincts buzzed. She remembered seeing that name. A. Carter, VIP flag, override clearance. She stepped forward. "Her reservation is valid," Alina said quietly. Gregory turned to her like a whip. "Say another word and you're out." But Alina didn't back down. She looked at Aisha, eyes steady. She saw something now, something she hadn't dared to say before. "She's not here to scam anyone," Alina said louder. Still calm, Aisha raised her phone again. "Nia, log this moment. Timestamp the video. Begin internal escalation. I want everything recorded." Jacob's live stream viewers climbed past 1,000. People were watching, commenting in real time. "This is disgusting. How is this happening in a luxury hotel? That woman is so composed it's scary." Sophie's voice rang out across the marble lobby. "They took her card. That's theft." But it didn't stop there. Kevin, drunk on confidence, leaned in over the desk and snapped. "You think some card gets you in here? Go back to wherever you came from." Gasps, a ripple of outrage. Phones tilted forward. Then came Alina again, voice trembling with restrained fury. "I've worked here 3 years. Every time a guest like her walks in, alone, confident, dressed down, you treat them like criminals." Gregory turned on her again. "Enough, get security, get her out." Lauren, emboldened, reached forward and grabbed Aisha's arm. That was the moment. The atmosphere cracked like lightning. Phones jolted. Voices rose. Sophie screamed. "She just touched her. I got it on film." The room shifted. This wasn't just bad service. It was a spectacle, a humiliation. And everyone was now watching it happen in real time. Aisha didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back. She looked at Kevin and said, "Return my card." Kevin laughed. "Or what?" Her eyes stayed locked. "Or you'll be locked out of the Horizon system. No employment, no references, no appeal." Lauren rolled her eyes. "You don't speak for Horizon." But then came the twist. Alina spoke again, clear and unwavering. "She does." The room stilled for a moment, not from peace, but anticipation. When Alina said, "She does," it was like someone flipped a switch in the lobby. Gregory blinked. Lauren turned pale. Kevin stopped smirking. Aisha stepped forward, not angry, not loud, just steady. "You've just made the worst mistake of your professional lives." Gregory barked back, desperate to maintain control. "You think so?" She didn't flinch. "I know so." All around them, guests froze mid-conversation, mid-step. Phones tilted upward. Voices hushed into sharp silence. Then Kevin, still clinging to a sense of superiority, held up the key to the safe like a victory banner. "This card," he said, "is now company property until the bank says otherwise." He turned his back to the crowd and slammed the safe door shut. That slam, it sounded like finality, but it wasn't final. It was the countdown. Aisha remained still, expression unreadable, voice lower than a whisper but felt like thunder. "You just invited a storm." Gregory leaned in again, smug and blind. "You're wasting everyone's time. Walk out now, or we'll make that choice for you." Lauren followed his cue, stepped out from behind the desk, and again reached for Aisha. "You've been warned. Time to go." Her hand made contact. That's when it snapped. Gasps erupted. Sophie's phone caught the frame in perfect focus. Jacob's stream jumped past 2,000 viewers. Guests muttered in disbelief. Tension turned physical. Elena didn't hesitate this time. She stepped forward and blocked Lauren's path with her entire body. "Don't touch her again." Lauren's eyes narrowed. "You'll be fired." Elena's jaw set. "Then fire me, but you won't put your hands on her again." Gregory exploded. "Do you even know who she is? She's a fraud, look at her." He gestured wildly to Aisha's outfit. Plain t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, as if fabric proved guilt. Aisha's voice cut through the room like a blade. "You keep saying that word, fraud, like it's going to make your mistake disappear." And then she took a step forward. Not aggressive, not defensive, but deliberate, final. "At 29, I checked into a luxury hotel in Los Angeles. 2 forms of ID. Corporate card. Reservation confirmed. They still made me wait 2 hours, while 3 white men checked in with handshakes and nods. That night, I wrote the zero-tolerance policy now used across my hotels. That night lives in my bones, so does this one." Gregory growled toward Kevin. "Get security, call them in, now." But Kevin didn't move. He stood frozen, eyes darting across the lobby, scanning every phone camera, every witness, every truth being captured and streamed. Sophie's lens hovered near his face. Jacob turned his stream to another guest and asked, "Sir, what do you see happening?" The man replied instantly, "I see a woman being kicked out of a hotel she clearly belongs in." Gregory spun. "That's slander. She hasn't proven anything." Aisha turned her phone outward. "Would anyone like proof?" The crowd murmured, encouraging, leaning in. But she didn't show a badge, didn't wave a contract. She turned to Elena. "Do you see my name in the reservation system?" Elena didn't hesitate. "Yes, A. Carter, penthouse suite, checked in remotely. And is the VIP tag attached?" "Yes, executive level, owner override." Gasps swept the lobby like a gust of wind. One guest whispered, "Wait, this is her hotel." Sophie, breathless, asked the question aloud. "Do you own this place?" Before Aisha could answer, Elena stepped forward. "She does." Silence, thick and electric, took over the Horizon Grand Lobby. The guests who had watched from a distance now leaned in. Phones were still rolling. Eyes were still locked. But everything had changed. Gregory didn't move. His jaw tensed. His lips parted, searching for a denial, a distraction, a defense. But none came. Lauren staggered a step back, as if gravity itself had shifted. Kevin's hands slowly lowered from the counter, the arrogance draining from his fingers. Aisha took a step forward. "You wanted me out," she said, her voice steady. "You called me a thief. You humiliated me in my own lobby." Gregory's mouth twitched. He opened it. But before he could speak, a voice rang out from Aisha's phone. "Aisha, Carla is ready. Do you want her patched through?" Still locking eyes with Gregory, Aisha said, "Yes, right now." She tapped the screen once, and Carla Bennett's voice, calm, commanding, prepared, filled the lobby. "Aisha, everything is ready. We're standing by for your authorization." Aisha didn't raise her voice. She didn't grandstand. She simply said, "Terminate Gregory Vance. Terminate Lauren Hayes. Terminate Kevin Patel. Effective immediately. Revoke all Horizon system access. Log today's incident for legal review." A beat of silence. Then, BZZT. Gregory's badge blinked red. BZZT. Lauren's did the same. BZZT. Kevin stared at his badge as if it had just betrayed him. The moment was quiet. No shouting, no arguing, just finality. In front of dozens of witnesses, they were locked out, completely, irreversibly, undeniably. Stripped not by revenge, but by truth. Elena, who had once been silenced by fear, now stood with her shoulders square. "They've been removed," she announced, her voice echoing like a gavel. "They no longer speak for Horizon." Gregory erupted. "This is illegal. You can't. This isn't how hotels operate." He turned to Lauren, shouting, "Call corporate, call someone." Lauren fumbled with her phone, but her hands trembled. I'm locked out," she whispered. "Everything's gone." Kevin, desperate to reclaim some authority, stepped toward the safe, but Alina stepped in front of him. "Stop right there," she said. "You're no longer authorized to handle guest property." Kevin froze. And then Gregory lashed out, not physically but verbally, throwing his last dart. "You think this circus makes you a leader?" He snarled at Aisha. "You tricked your way in. You'll be sued. You'll lose everything." But even his voice cracked when he said it. He had finally realized he wasn't in charge anymore. Aisha didn't blink. "You think leadership is about hiding things, about perception, not truth." She turned slowly, gesturing to the guests now surrounding them. "Leadership is when those who have been ignored for too long finally get heard." That was when the dam broke. A voice rose from the back. "You never responded to my complaint last spring." Another, "I was charged twice. Got silence until I threatened legal action." Then another, "I requested an ADA-compliant room, and you said none were available. Then gave one to someone else." The chorus swelled. The walls, once decorated with gold and velvet, now echoed with the ghosts of suppressed voices. Elena added her own. "I logged 3 complaints last month alone, all dismissed, all signed off by Gregory." Lauren backed against the wall, eyes flicking from Aisha to the guests to the cameras. "Greg, they're turning on us." His voice was no longer a bark, it was a whimper. "They're just angry. It'll blow over." But it wouldn't, it had only just begun. Jacob turned to his camera. "This is what a reckoning looks like." And Sophie, she lifted her phone and said, "It's out there now." The lobby was no longer a place of service. It had become a courtroom. And the sentence was being delivered not by a judge, but by the truth itself. Gregory lunged towards Sophie, voice shaking. "Delete that video. That's private property." But a man stepped in his path, calm, glasses perched on his nose, holding a coffee he hadn't even touched. "No, you don't get to silence this." An elderly woman followed suit, standing beside Sophie. "Your face is already online," she said coldly. "Might want to think twice before making another threat." The crowd had become a wall, a human barrier. And behind that wall stood Aisha, still composed, still quiet. Lauren's voice cracked, finally breaking under the weight of shame. "I didn't know. I didn't mean for this to happen." But Aisha didn't offer comfort, didn't offer absolution. "You helped make it happen," she said. "You watched it happen." Gregory turned, desperate, still unable to comprehend the collapse. "Why didn't you say who you were?" he demanded. "You set us up." Aisha blinked. "I gave you every opportunity to treat me like any other guest. That was the test. And you failed it." Carla's voice returned in her ear, now on speaker. "The board has authorized full incident response, ready for next steps." Aisha raised her head, addressing everyone. "Gregory Vance, Lauren Hayes, Kevin Patel, effective immediately, your employment with Horizon Hospitality is terminated. You are barred from re-entry into the Horizon system. Your access is revoked." A beat. "And your behavior today will be submitted for legal review." Kevin stammered, "This is insane. We built this place." Aisha turned to him, eyes like granite. "You built nothing. You guarded the door, and turned away the very people we claim to serve. She nodded toward Alina. Unlock the safe, retrieve my card. Alina moved swiftly. Calm, sure. She entered her override code, opened the safe, took the black card, untouched, pristine, and handed it back. Their roles had reversed. The girl who once feared Gregory's glances was now the keyholder. And then the sound, applause, quiet, measured, purposeful. A clap not for performance, but for principle. One by one, guests joined in. Aisha stood at the center, not triumphant, but resolved. This wasn't just about me, she said. It was about every guest who was told their presence was a problem, every complaint ignored, every policy used to humiliate instead of serve. Behind her, Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin stood stripped of authority, stripped of voice, stripped of power, and yet, this was only the beginning. Aisha turned back to her assistant on the call. Nia, initiate full lobby-level reform, prepare the public statement, and elevate Alina Ruiz. Effective immediately, she will lead this property. Yes, ma'am, Nia replied. Aisha stepped forward slowly, finally, no longer anonymous, no longer mistaken. Just one woman, in plain clothes, reclaiming the kingdom built in her name. The glass doors of the Horizon Grand slowly shut behind Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin. They left not as employees, but as examples. Inside, the lobby began to transform. Not physically, no walls moved, no lights changed, but the energy had shifted completely, from fear to accountability, from silence to truth. Aisha stood in the center of it all. She turned to Alina. Initiate the reform plan, start from the top. Alina, now guest services director, didn't hesitate. She walked to the reservation system and began shutting it down. All staff logins under their credentials are disabled, she confirmed. Front desk functions suspended. VIP guests will be handled manually. Aisha nodded. Good. Now notify compliance, legal, and diversity operations. I want a full audit. Last 18 months, complaints, dismissals, suppression logs. Nia's voice echoed in her ear. Already in motion. Media has picked up the footage, but your voice is front and center. Carla's preparing the briefing. Guests didn't leave. They stayed, not out of curiosity, but solidarity. One woman with a reservation printout approached Alina. I wanted to say something earlier. I was scared. Alina smiled. We're listening now. Jacob's livestream passed 10,000 viewers. His caption now read, CEO reclaims hotel, entire staff fired, real-time reform. Sophie lowered her phone. Do you want me to keep posting? Aisha replied, only the truth. That's all I care about. Then Aisha turned back to the crowd. For years, Horizon promised inclusion, but policies mean nothing if bias hides behind the desk. Today, that ends. She looked back at Alina. Schedule recertification for every employee, front desk, concierge, management, no exceptions, no grandfather clauses. Bring in an independent firm. Training begins within 72 hours. Carla's voice returned. We've confirmed your authority to suspend operations temporarily. Guest safety protocol is in effect. Aisha nodded. Suspend check-ins. Redirect guests to our downtown partner with full coverage and a complimentary night. Alina nodded again, understood. And then, just when it seemed the worst had passed, came the twist. A notification lit up Aisha's phone, an internal compliance flag. She tapped it open and read, her jaw clenched, not from surprise, but confirmation. She looked up and said, not to anyone in particular, but loud enough for all to hear. Gregory didn't act alone. The room stilled again. Carla's voice was low now in her earpiece. We pulled archive logs. Gregory submitted false complaint summaries to regional HQ, marked unresolved cases as resolved, and we found email threads between him and former regional director Michael Turner. Aisha's voice dropped, cold, sharp, decisive. Turner retired 3 months ago, quietly, under an HR cloud. Nia chimed in. Turns out Turner protected Gregory, and Lauren, there's a pattern. Aisha closed her eyes, not in defeat, but in resolve. Then we're not just reforming this location. We're launching a horizon-wide investigation. Every flagged name, every buried complaint, every fake resolution. She turned to Jacob, who still held his stream live. You can show this part. People need to know, rot starts at the root, and we're digging it out. A hush settled over the crowd. One woman whispered, I've waited years to see someone actually do something. Sophie turned back to her stream. We came for a vacation and witnessed a revolution. Aisha glanced around the lobby. She no longer saw chandeliers and velvet seats. She saw the blueprint for what hospitality could have been all along. This hotel, she said, wasn't broken by its walls. It was broken by the silence behind them. That era ends today. 3 months later, the Horizon Grand still looked the same. The marble floors still gleamed. The crystal chandeliers still sparkled. The velvet chairs still invited guests to sit and stay a while. But no one entered the lobby the same way anymore. What was once a space of quiet judgment had become a symbol of open welcome. Where policies had once masked prejudice, transparency now stood. Near the front desk hung a new portrait. Aisha Carter, not posed, not grandiose, just her. Below it, a brass plaque read, This space belongs to every guest. No exceptions. Elena Ruiz, the once silenced concierge, now stood as general manager of the hotel. Not as a token, but as proof that courage has a seat at the table. And the transformation didn't end in Seattle. Across the entire Horizon Hospitality Group, change took root. 57 locations were audited. Hundreds of ignored complaints resurfaced. Mandatory retraining rolled out company-wide. Anonymous guest feedback systems were deployed. And every hiring and firing decision now required a paper trail. The guests who had witnessed that unforgettable day, they each received a personal letter, not from a PR department, but from Aisha herself. You stood when others looked away. That matters. Jacob Reed and Sophie Lynn, the travelers who live-streamed a moment that shook a corporation, were invited to speak at Horizon's Leadership Summit. We didn't set out to expose anyone, Jacob said. We just refused to put our phones down. But the shadows of the past were not easily erased. A week after the incident, Aisha received a quiet message from a former Horizon manager in Portland. His voice, heavy with guilt, confessed what many had suspected. Gregory didn't create this system, he said. He was following it. During Turner's time, there were unspoken directives, no paperwork, just quiet instructions to treat certain guests as less than. Aisha didn't rage. She thanked him, then forwarded the confession to legal. Because by now, she understood, Gregory was only the tip of the iceberg. The real threat was the culture that let him thrive. A task force was formed. Former employees wrongfully terminated were reviewed and, in many cases, reinstated or compensated. Hiring standards were overhauled. And for the first time, telling the truth no longer risked your job, but protected it. Aisha Carter's legacy transformed forever. Once known as a discreet billionaire who built her empire from grit and quiet strategy, She now stood publicly as a reformer, not because she sought the spotlight, but because she stepped into it. So no one else had to fight in the dark. She launched a new initiative, Horizon Forward, a division for equity, inclusion, and measurable change. Its first act, naming Alina Ruiz as National Advisor for Frontline Guest Experience. And at the inaugural Horizon Forward Summit, Aisha stood before staff, guests, and survivors of silent discrimination and said, "Hospitality doesn't begin with a smile. It begins with the respect you assume." The audience rose to their feet, not for a CEO, but for a woman who once stood at the edge of the exit and turned around to open the door for everyone else.